Resident Evil 4 Remake is undoubtedly one of the best games I've ever played since Witcher 3, and that is a really high hurdle to hit. The game hits right in every single aspect of it, from the story to the graphics to the gameplay and the characters, to the point I really can't find it in me to criticize most of it. It's a beautiful balance of action from Resident Evil 3 with horror elements from Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I can see why this game is considered one of the best installments of the franchise despite the fact I've never played the original. You know what, I'm gonna do what I don't normally do and just give you the verdict right here. It's a well-deserved 10 out of 10, go play it spoiler free, and once you get used to the combat, the game really picks up from there and just keeps getting better as you go along. The horror fans will love it, the third-person shooters will definitely enjoy this physics-reliant combat, and I will guarantee you are going to be in for a good ride. And if you're not convinced yet, let's start with the story. As far as the story goes, it follows much of the same as the original Resident Evil 4, where Leon from Resident Evil 2 Remake is back to save Ashley, the president's daughter, from an evil cult that wants to take over the world. If you play the original, the game has lots of Devil May Cry style cheese sprinkled into the plot and dialogue, a fair bit of which has been toned down in this remake to keep the story much more serious. Unfortunately, iconic lines like
President's equipped his daughter with ballistics too.
And Leon's
"No thanks, bro"
were removed, but at the very least, a lot of them are still referenced as achievements in the game, like Big Cheese, No Thanks Bro, and Your Small Time, all of which players of the original will definitely appreciate. I personally think this shift in tone of the game towards more serious dialogue for the most part really works quite well for the series since it avoids being campy like the original. The game's a horror game after all, and this fits the fact that the environments are far darker and grittier than the original was. As far as the game goes, you'll initially begin with just Leon for the first few chapters as you fight hordes of crazed villagers and Chainsaw Man. All while you slowly improve your arsenal with the merchant over here. The craziest part about all this is that once you get used to the combat, the game then throws you in for a bit of a loop as Ashley is now introduced into the game to spice up the action and give you someone to protect. You might think that this is going to be a long drawn out escort mission, but as far as protecting here goes, the remake's Ashley is no longer the spoiled rich kid who doesn't check herself and wreck herself for the most part. She's an actually lovable character who becomes an integral part of the team by becoming a master of unlocking and kicking ladders down for you. She's now a competent ally, and the fact that she gets incapacitated instead of having a HP bar is a much better system that makes it much less tedious to keep an eye out for her. Ashley as a character actually grows over the course of the game as she's afraid of everything, the infection taking control of her, the villagers after you with chainsaws and bombs in hand, and you even get tossed right into her shoes with no weapons except for a single lantern that stops enemies when you shine light on them. It's terrifying and it's absolutely brilliant in that regard. I have never been this scared in a horror game since Alien Isolation or Amnesia. It's masterful storytelling from Capcom, and the events of the game help Ashley shine in where she really does best, and she sometimes fills in the gaps that Leon is unable to do outside of combat. There's even a part in the game where she uses this giant crane and actually bashes down a wall while you are protecting the crane. If you don't already love Ashley after the first few sections with her, I guarantee you will in due time. I'd say the game even picks up and gets good once you first meet Ashley at sometime between chapter 4 and 5, which I'd argue is where the game truly begins. In terms of the sidecast though, Luis definitely gets a much better role in the game, with him becoming the best friend who you will love in this remake compared to the original. His involvement in the game makes way more sense than the original, and I'm definitely sure you will enjoy some of the crazy escapades that you go on with him, one of which includes an entire full-length 10-minute Indiana Jones style minecart ride, and don't worry, it gets better. Also, he gives you ammo when you are low on it, which is plain awesome. Ada on the other hand gets a lot less screen time than her original counterpart, or maybe it's due to how cold she seems to act towards Leon throughout, or it's probably her voice acting that does make her feel fairly different, of course. Unfortunately, the dynamic between Leon and Ada has been changed by Capcom from a subtle fondness of each other into Leon being extremely bitter over Ada faking her death in Resident Evil 2. If anything, I do definitely think that they are now equals instead of Leon following Ada's orders like in Resident Evil 2. In quite a few years as well since they last met, so I think the flame has basically died out over time. Still though, even though I do think there's quite a bit less Ada than I was hoping, I really do hope they release the Separate Ways DLC soon enough and actually give Ada much more screen time to give her a chance to flesh out her character. And also give us Wesker and Mercenaries. One of your best friends in the game definitely has to be the merchant. I think his store has to be one of the reasons why I sometimes wasn't scared of the game. When you see that purple glow of his torch at the end of the dark tunnel, it's a safe place for you to relax, reorder your inventory, save, and buy some resources, new weapons, and of course first aid sprays, because I tend to take massive amounts of damage. There's also plenty of weapon upgrades in the menu too, which can make you reload and fire faster, your gun stronger, and increase magazine size. The relics though are your best bet for getting plenty of cash for weapons and weapon upgrades, especially the ones which have sockets for gems. Gems can be found throughout the game from chests and dropped by stronger enemies that you sometimes don't have to kill, so I'd highly recommend you only selling the relics once you've fully socketed them and killed the larger enemies if you have enough bullets for them. When you think side quests, you think of random fetch quests that detract from the original story, but side quests in this game are seriously not a chore. They're actually as simple as breaking 5 blue medallions, exterminating rats, simply selling a specific item to the merchant, and it's really to the point where I, who normally skip silly side objectives, would actually do the requests. They reward you with the spinels that you can then trade in with the merchant for loot that you really can't buy, so it does help motivate you to do the request. They are also area specific, so you'll usually find the blue request paper pinned up in the area the objectives are all in. Highly recommend getting the treasure maps with the spinels if you play for the first time. They are really useful for finding loot within the map and secret areas to fulfill some of these side quests as well. I think a really important part of this game to spice things up has to be the boss fights, and they all feel unique with their different patterns and mechanics, including evade prompts that allow you to feel like an absolute badass dodging giant tentacles and large attacks which you normally can't do in the main combat. As you can tell, the game already unfortunately lacks an evade system though, which sort of makes some sense, the fact that you can't expect someone to roll around like an idiot Dark Souls style. It just makes you feel pretty nauseous, I'm sure. The best villain of the game has to be Krauser though, an ex-military soldier with ties to Leon who has now joined the cult in the pursuit of indestructible power. You literally get into a full-out knife fight with him where you can't use guns, and you can see he has been fully fleshed out in this game as well by the hints to his backstory in their dialogue. As sad as I know many of you are about the loss of some of the iconic meme lines, this remake has some of its awesome moments to make up for it throughout, all while retaining Leon's snarky charm. Capcom's also hidden plenty of little details and Easter eggs that show that the devs actually do care about the game. Bridges collapse when damaged too much, people collide and stagger when kicked down the stairs into each other, and friendly fire exists on both sides, so you can use a chainsaw man to make quick work of the villagers, if you time it right. Or accidentally shoot Ashley in the foot. Okay. The combat though is definitely a masterpiece, and if you can land some really good headshots, you'll be kicking enemies and saving lots of ammo all the time. Ammo is fairly abundant, and so are the herbs that you can combine, all of which tend to appear more often in breakable boxes just as you really need them. I seriously don't know how they do it, but the game prevents you from ever running out of resources, especially if you leave some barrels around. Green herbs are for base healing, red herbs improve the green effectiveness, and yellow herbs increase max health, all of which are part of the crafting system, which is really simple and runs mainly on gunpowder, large resources and small resources for you to make ammo for guns. It's effective and it keeps the game focused on combat instead of being limited in supplies like in Resident Evil 2. There are even weird and funny ways to defeat bosses, like this one guy who you can throw a golden egg at his face to end the first phase of the fight immediately and damage him for about 60% of his health because he hates eggs. Which is actually a hint from a side quest where you toss an egg at his portrait to vandalize it, so you can tell he definitely hates eggs. Throw 2 golden eggs at him and you instantly win the boss fight. Which, definitely make of this information as you will, but I found it absolutely hilarious when he takes damage from a literal fucking egg. In comparison to the original game though, RE4 Remake is far grittier and more realistic with extremely detailed scenery that runs like a dream in this age of unfinished, unoptimized AAA games. For that, we have to thank Capcom's RE engine and its stunning graphics. The RE engine definitely has to be one of the most well-optimized engines I've ever seen a game run on. I have had no crashes whatsoever throughout the entire playthrough of this remake, and the game still looks gorgeous even when the graphics aren't cranked up to the fullest. I know this because I spent half the game playing without the hair strands and physics activated, and I didn't even realize my graphic settings weren't set to high, and that the quality could have gotten even better. As you can see, the graphics are gorgeous regardless. Unlike many other AAA games in this day and age, the RE engine is worlds ahead of the competition to the point you could pick up Resident Evil 2 that runs on the same engine and still think the game was fairly new 10 years later. It's an excellent engine for the RE4 remake, and I cannot stress enough how great it is to finally play a AAA title that doesn't run like ass. And now comes the part where I recommend you to play this on PC solely because it's far easier to aim with a mouse and keyboard. It's got a great PC port on Steam, and if you have a PC with a decent GPU, I would definitely get that over the PS5 and PS4 versions. If not, then the console version is alright as well. I know everybody does have their preferences for consoles as well as their budget restrictions, so definitely play it on whichever platform you can get it on. I got the game at full price, and to be seriously honest with you, I didn't initially have the motivation to finish it after having my ass handed to me in the second chapter, so I urge you to give this game a chance to get better as you go further, and for you to get used to the combat with better weapons. I guarantee this game will not disappoint. There's plenty of throwbacks to RE2 Remake that are sprinkled all around as well, including keycards and whatnot, so definitely look out for those if you've played it. Or if you haven't played the Resident Evil game before, this is a great time to join into the series if you catch up on Leon and Ada's backstory from RE2. A fair warning though, before you do pick up RE2, if you decide to play it to catch up before RE4, I would advise you that RE2 can seem a bit tedious since you basically have to run the game twice in a row. I'm really sorry to the RE2 fans out there, but yes, it really focuses more on the resource management side of things and it's a lot less of shooting. I personally don't think RE2 is as fun as RE4, despite the fact I definitely enjoyed the atmosphere of RE2. But RE4 is definitely a good balance of the combat and horror elements, and it's the best way to experience Leon as a character. And that's pretty much all I have to say on Resident Evil 4 Remake. An excellent game from start to finish. The combat feels fluid due to all the physics, the solid graphics, the good optimization on both PS5 and PC, and it boasts a story with much better flow and tone that actually suits the narrative. 10 out of 10, one of the best games I've ever played in a very, very long time, and I would highly recommend. Thanks for watching, like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy this sort of content, and as always, stay safe, stay humble, and always have 2 pistols on hand for when you run out of bullets, Mr. Kennedy. This is the Annie Knight, and we will see you next time.